This is about making adversity your advantage. You may have heard the first part of this story before. It's taken from Paulo Coelho, the author of a wonderful book called The Alchemist. But you have not heard the second part. So a man is walking through a forest when he sees some movement under a bush and it catches his eye. As he leans down to take a closer look, he sees one of the most beautiful acts of nature, a butterfly trying to free itself from its chrysalis. As he continues to watch, he's first mesmerized and then concerned because it appears that the butterfly is struggling and straining but making very little headway to free itself from the chrysalis. The man's filled with compassion and he leans down to help. He pulls apart the chrysalis so that the butterfly can more easily free itself, and then he steps back to watch. His excitement quickly turns to dread as he sees that the butterfly is exiting with swollen body and crumpled wings, and it emerges to eventually fall to the ground. This is where the butterfly will live the rest of its very short and tortured life. What the man didn't know is that the butterfly needed the struggle and strain to force itself out of the chrysalis. This struggle forces fluid from the butterfly's body into the wings so they become full and the butterfly can fly. Without the struggle, the butterfly cannot fly. The butterfly will never serve its purpose. This story of the butterfly contains a profound truth about growth, not only in nature, but in our lives as well. Struggle is often seen as something to avoid, a sign that things aren't going well, or maybe we're not enough. But what if the struggle isn't the problem? Instead, what if the struggle is the solution? I think the Stoics had it right. Nearly 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And more recently, as the author and modern Stoic Ryan Holiday puts it, "The obstacle is the way." Both ancient philosophers and modern scientists recognize that obstacles don't merely block our path. Under the right circumstances, they are our path. But what are those right circumstances? Let's start with some interesting science and how it relates to you. All the way down to our cellular level, our bodies and even our brains respond to stress in ways that promote growth. This concept is known as hormesis, which essentially says that moderate levels of stress trigger biological mechanisms that make us stronger, more adaptable, and more resilient. For example, in the early 2000s, researchers named Zarilla, Blank, Yang, and others discovered that moderate levels of stress lead to an increase in corticotropin-releasing factor, CRF, specifically in the hippocampus, a part of the brain that's associated with learning and memory. Think of CRF as fertilizer for your brain. It helps strengthen and speed up connections between neurons, essentially making you smarter and more adaptable. In essence, this moderate stress primes your brain for growth and learning. Consider another example that you might already know. What happens to muscles when you exercise? When you challenge the muscles appropriately, you struggle and strain, and your muscles actually break down and create micro tears. But in the process of healing, the muscles will actually rebuild themselves stronger than they were before. The same idea is true for your mind, your spirit, and your willpower. Each of these things can be rebuilt stronger than they were before the struggle. Through the struggle done right, we don't just passively endure, we actively adapt. The appropriate struggle leads to new levels of growth and mastery. Now, before we go on, there's something I have to tell you. Embracing the struggle is not going to be easy in the beginning because you have eons of evolution and human nature screaming at you to get into your comfort zone. Here's what you need to know about human nature. Human nature is designed for protection. It is not designed for greatness. If you want greatness, you must rise above human nature. At the core of the intelligent struggle is a realization that struggle or adversity or challenge is not something to overcome with brute force, nor is it something to lament. With the right understanding, struggles are not roadblocks, but opportunities. Opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. This isn't about mindlessly pushing through challenges or romanticizing adversity. It's about learning how to engage with challenges deliberately and thoughtfully. It's about knowing how you can use the struggle as a tool for your success. The challenge point framework shows that if you practice a certain way, you will learn 3 or 4 times faster than normal, and that learning will be stress resistant, which means that it will hold up when you are under stress. There are nearly 4,000 research articles written about challenge point framework that show that we can optimize growth through just the right amount of challenge or struggle. Basically, if the challenge is too easy, we disengage and eventually wither, like the butterfly. If the challenge is too difficult, we become overwhelmed or frustrated or even traumatized. However, if we operate just beyond the edge of our current abilities, what's called the optimal challenge point, we enter a state of deep engagement where learning, growth, and mastery thrive. This optimal challenge point, by the way, is scaled to the individual, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Earlier, we talked about a medium level of stress strengthening the neural and muscular system. The challenge point emphasizes that optimal struggle creates the conditions for peak learning. In these moments, where we push ourselves beyond our comfort zone without tipping into panic, our brains and bodies stretch to meet the challenge, adapting in ways that make us stronger, more capable, and ultimately more fulfilled. There's a surprising benefit to living at the edge of our capabilities. When we live on this edge, we will fail almost as often as we succeed. This may not sound like a benefit, but it is. In these moments of struggle, where failure and success dance so closely together, our brains are primed to learn in an extraordinary fashion. This point of struggle is our optimal challenge point. With this view of failure, we see failure as part of the growth process, reframing it as valuable feedback rather than a sign of defeat. Instead of retreating from difficulty, we lean into it. This shift in mindset is transformative. This is one of the greatest gifts of the intelligent struggle, learning not to fear failure. In fact, ideally, learning to value failure under the right circumstances. And if you take nothing else from this video, if you just get to a place in your life where you no longer fear failure, this will be worth it. As always, thank you for listening. And if you found this interesting and helpful to you, please share it with people that you care about. And we'd love it if you would like and subscribe on YouTube.